Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's most tuckered out music nerd. Ready for a nap, but it's time for a review of the new Mac DeMarco record. Another one. Mac DeMarco is a New York via British Columbia songwriter, guitarist, band leader who has been dropping sweet, heartfelt little bits of indie pop since the days of Makeout videotape. He has a few full-length records under his belt now which have been pretty well received by those who like to take their pop jangly and sort of dreamy. But the thing about Mac is that he doesn't always take this easygoing sound as like an out to just deliver like a lazy song or just no song at all. But I wouldn't say this is always the case. Two most definitely had its weak moments, and even more so Salad Days, which I just thought was underwhelming in general. There have been Mac DeMarco songs that I've loved, but he's never hit me with a full-length record that I've been head over heels for from beginning to end. But I hear that potential in his music. I hear it in some of his most fantastic songs. I hear it in his production. I hear it in his amazing, just twangy guitar tone, and his really emotive playing too, the way his guitars just sparkle and bend all over his tracks. So having said all that, I was looking forward to this new mini album over here, but of course I'm not reviewing this record by myself. I have brought on John of ARTV, a fellow YouTube music reviewer, music critic guy, to discuss this record with me. Tran?
Position. And now, thanks to the magic of the internet, we are here. We will hang outing with John from ARTV, talking about this new Mac DeMarco mini album. John, what were your general thoughts of this new Mac DeMarco project?
I'm honestly really liking it. It's got some very spirited tunes. I would say probably some of the catchiest stuff DeMarco has put out to date. I had a few problems with some of his past material, and I would say probably Salad Days. I know we'll probably disagree on that one, but that was probably my favorite work from him up to that point, and I think he's just further built on that, adding in a few extra instruments here and there, a few synthesizers popping up on this record, some nice tropical leaning guitars on some of the jams. I don't know, it's just a really smooth and easy to digest little mini album.
So even though it's definitely not as substantial a project as Salad Days or Two, you think generally, like as far as like his instrumentation and the way that he's writing his songs, you think he's like improved on all fronts?
Maybe not on all fronts, because some of the lyrical content, I would say, for me on this record is not quite as, it's not as worth diving into. Not that he was ever a super lyrical mastermind or anything like that, but in terms of the instrumentals on this LP, I think that he's come through big time, probably his best work to date.
Well, I don't think he came through lyrically with any songs that were super sticky in terms of the hook, in terms of what he's saying on the choruses of these tracks. But as far as the verses go, I think he's put out some of his most poetic material so far. And I think it partially has to do with just how much this album seems to be kind of focused on just love right. Songs in general.
It's a relationship record, I would say, and more so than anything he's put out. I mean, there were relationship songs on Salad Days or even Two, or even his debut EP, but still, like you said, this one is definitely driven by love.
Yeah, I mean, just either he's in love with someone or the same person throughout the whole record, or she's in love with someone else and the love isn't really a two-way street, or his heart is just like broken. For me, generally, I thought this was an improvement on a lot of fronts too. Again, even though it isn't as large a project as his previous stuff.
Right.
I thought there were some incredibly catchy songs on here, and maybe not better than some of my favorite tracks he's put out in the past, like My Kind of Woman, easily my favorite Mac DeMarco song of all time. But I think this project is consistent. You know, there wasn't really anything. There wasn't really anything more than like one dud on this record. The intro track on here to me felt just kind of like your average Mac DeMarco song. It had like the stringy, twangy guitars.
It's so infectious, though. It's one of those tracks that I can't get out of my head, honestly, since I started playing this record. Yeah, The Way You Love Her definitely stood out to me. Just It's guitar. It's not anything super, I guess, maybe new for DeMarco, but at the same time, it's got, I don't know, some sort of irresistible quality to it that I can't really deny.
It does have that Mac DeMarco charm to it. You know, I'm not gonna take that away from it. And it wasn't a track on here I would necessarily skip. I think the only track on here I would skip is probably Just to Put Me Down, which just the way his vocals are just so strung out over this really redundant, slow beat just got really tedious for me, like even by the halfway point of the song. It did break things up a little bit because it sounded different than the other tracks on here, but it just wasn't doing anything for me. I don't know if you have a different opinion.
Definitely. Honestly, that's one of my favorite songs on this LP.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It really is. Just to Put Me Down, I thought was fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. He comes off like kind of like the underdog here. You're like, you want to be rooting for him. He's like, it seems to be like in some sort of like oppressive relationship, or I don't know, having him like his heart is getting played with over and over again, like he's getting tricked over and over again. I don't know. It's just got this kind of spry instrumental on it that I keep finding myself gravitating towards.
Well, I mean, moving on from the tracks that I didn't really love, I thought No Other Heart was like one of his best tracks ever. I mean, the twangy, sparkling guitar leads he puts on this track are just really expressive and sad, and I just like feel bad for the guy on some of these tracks. Like another one, I mean, the title track on here I thought was heartbreaking.
Oh,
and, yeah. And Without Me Too, I mean, I thought these were some of his best songs to date, not only because I thought the lyrics, again, were poetic, and all of this album really just centers on that love, that heartbreak, that romance, that just desire for love.
Right. I like seeing that. I like seeing him. I don't, you know, like you said, I feel bad for him, but at the same time, I feel like whenever he's kind of put in that corner, it makes him a more expressive songwriter. And another one, the title track, like you said, definitely one of his, I guess, best written songs on this. Sees his insecurities kind of taking over him. He's kind of like the guy who's stalking his girl. He reminds me of someone who would be like looking through this girl's Facebook, etc., looking to see what she's up to. He's insecure that there's another person in her life. And I don't know, I kind of like seeing that side of DeMarco coming out.
Yeah, it's such a cliche thing to sing about, but he just really owns it. You know? Like he's just really convincing as that guy.
Right.
And yeah, like you were saying, I mean, I thought the keyboards all over this record were fantastic. Just like this really nice, pleasant, sweet, fat kind of analog sound, just this analog thickness to the keyboards. I mean, there are lots of great analog imitation either keyboards or apps or plugins. I don't know what he used. I can't suppose that, but I mean, it at least has that kind of thick, heavy presence of an analog synthesizer. And Mac DeMarco, I've always loved his guitar tone, and it just sounds better than ever on this record.
I thought the guitar was some of the most standout parts of this record to me,
yeah,
honestly.
definitely.
Yeah, and some of the keyboards, like you were talking about there, I loved. Whenever I was listening to Salad Days, there was tracks like, there was one track, Chamber of Reflection, I believe, that was kind of synth heavy, and I was kind of hoping he would do more with that in the future, and I'm excited to see that he actually did play around with some of those effects here on the record.
Mm-hmm. And the bass lines were pretty warm too, and just like really fit the grooves of these tracks. Mac DeMarco just has, and this is definitely true of the intro track, he kind of has this knack for, I don't know, these really weird, bumbling, like head-bobbing sort of grooves, like
it's fun. It's fun to listen to, honestly. No other part was probably one that really stood out to me in terms of the bass work on it. I thought it was just like, it was one of those ones that I kept listening to it, and that was one of the most prominent parts of the song for me. I love how he can kind of integrate like a fun bass line. It's not just something that's there. It's something that actually helps, I guess, bring together a lot of these tunes.
There's a lot of musical characteristics of these songs that I think are great, and yet like it's also subtle and it's also dreamy. I mean, that's what I like about bands like Beach House. That's what I like about bands like The Radio Department, and that's what I like about Mac DeMarco occasionally when he really does it. It's that the songs are easygoing, they're very pleasant, but when you sort of put them at the foreground of your mind, there's a really good song at the core of there too. You know, songs like Another One and like No Other Heart, I think could fit into just like normal pop instrumentation, or maybe even like a glam rock song. You know, there's something about like these songs that I feel like you could work them into a glam rock record if the singer sort of sat down for just like a really quiet, sad ballad for a moment. But yeah, he's kind of always playing that angle, but it doesn't really get that tiring because the songs on this record do manage to be so great, and the album isn't really that long anyway.
Right. There were a couple of moments that I found to be a little bit, I guess, tiring to me. Yeah,
what songs didn't really do it for you?
Well, I'm not going to say that this one didn't do it for me, but I kind of want to point out that on the guitar on No Other Heart just got a little bit, I don't know, grating to me over time, because this record was so short, so I gave it so many listens, and I think maybe the more I heard it, maybe I played it a little bit too much for myself, but that was one of them. And honestly, the track Without Me is one of those.
Like my favorite tracks are your least favorite tracks, and vice versa.
We kind of flip-flop there on that one. That's funny how that works out. But it was just, I don't know, it just felt like you're not stereotypical, but just kind of like what I would expect for a melancholy tune from DeMarco.
All right. Well, I mean, I think I think I've said everything I need to say about this record. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily an awful album. I don't think it's a bad album. I think it's very good. I think it's really enjoyable. I think it's some of his best tracks so far. It's just that, you know, it's a mini album. It kind of leaves me a little hungry, though I do like the fact that it does feel cohesive and complete in that a lot of the songs kind of have the same musical tone and the same sonic and emotional vibe to them, and Mac is kind of circling around a lot of these themes of love and heartbreak and so on and so forth.
Right.
So it does feel like a complete record. It feels like a cohesive record. It's not just some EP with a bunch of random throwaway songs.
Right.
It definitely feels, in my opinion, a little bit more focused than Salad Days was. I don't know if you'll agree with that, even though I know that you like Salad Days more than me.
Yeah, I did like Salad Days, but I would say this is, while the songs aren't really crafted, I guess, from the same slate there, I feel like it does kind of match those expectations that I had going out of Salad Days, transitioning into another one. Definitely met my expectations. There's a lot of great and catchy songs on here. It's not that much shorter than a regular DeMarco project. What we've come to expect, about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
LP from him. Really anything that he's put out so far, and this one clocks in, I think, around 24. So, like you said, it's a short, sweet, little easy pill to swallow, and I thought it was pretty fantastic. What are you thinking in terms of rating for this record?
Yeah, I mean, before I get into that, I do want to agree with you on that point. I mean, it is kind of a short, easy pill to swallow. I mean, as far as like a listen, but when you do listen in close to the lyrics, it is a little tortured at times too. And, you know, if you're really in tune with that and you're really listening to that, I think this record may break your heart as well a little bit. And I think I also want to commend Mac on just generally sounding on this record a little bit more mature than he does sometimes on his records. I mean, it really sounds like even with the tracks that I wasn't really vibing with, I didn't like they didn't sound too silly or anything like that. It just really sounded like he was trying to flex his songwriter muscle on this record, and for the most part, it came out good. I'm feeling a decent, strong 7 on this thing, I think.
Okay, well, I'm normally on a scale of 5 over on my channel, ARTV Reviews, but I'll go on your scale for today.
Do your scale, dude. Do your scale. Bring your scale in here.
Fine. I'm giving in to peer pressure. I'll do my own scale. I'm going 4 out of 5 for this record. I thought it was, like you said, you dive into the lyrics a little bit more. It can get kind of heartbreaking, but the more I hear it, there's just not really any tracks that I find myself really skipping over. Of course, the last track on this thing, My House by the Water, kind of a track that's there, and he gives out his address on it. Are you planning on going to see him, by the way?
You know, probably not going to go see him, but I appreciate the invite. You know,
yeah, that was nice of him. He opened up his house to pretty much everyone.
He has, and you know, and that's to me sort of maybe one of the things that I think works against this album a little bit. I feel like he didn't really have any super grand ambitions for this record, and as a result sort of thought that this was sort of like a bit of a personal little fan project that only his hardcore fans were going to gravitate toward. I think if he, you know, really tried to make some of these songs pop, like he did on 2, where he has some of his most fantastic singles, maybe this record would shine for me a little bit more if he was like thinking more about the crossover appeal of these tracks. But I don't really mind this album being as low key as it is, and I think that, you know, maybe he saw this album a little bit as like a little bit of a powwow with his fans, where they could just kind of, you know, be hanging together, listen to these really sort of somber, sad tunes, which I've heard is sort of the direction he wanted to take Salad Days in, just make a sadder, more somber, more personal record. But from what I've read in an interview he did with Pitchfork, like, Captured Tracks wasn't exactly feeling that direction.
Yeah, I heard they had a influence with that, with the making of Salad Days, and kind of with him coming off of tour and being a bit exhausted and getting thrown back into, not thrown back into the studio, but I feel like Captured Tracks did kind of play a role in that, in the creation of Salad Days. And
I think I think the idea of Mac doing a sadder, more somber record, I think the potential of that and the entertainment of that, the greatness of that, was displayed on this record, and it would be cool to sort of see him take the same vibe, take the same instrumentation, and I guess string it out into something that wouldn't be categorized as a mini album.
Right, right. I love seeing the steps that he's taking here from kind of record to record, and while this one does, like you said, he's going for a different vibe here very clearly. It's just that I see improvement consistently across the board with each thing that he's putting out. Maybe not significant between like something like 2 and Salad Days, because they came together in very similar times in his life and that sort of thing. But I'm just kind of excited to see what's coming after this, because he does put out records so consistently, or at least like an EP or something like that. So if we're getting something else next year, I could definitely see it being more in this vein, and I'm probably going to be on board for it.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, generally, I thought this record was good, and it's got me excited for whatever Mac is going to put out next. It sounds like you're of the same opinion.
Right.
And yeah, that's essentially our review of this record. I just want to, before we leave, thank John for coming on and saying his piece about this project, and I will link you guys right here on my face and his face when he pops up again to his channel, so you can check out his reviews. John, you want to say anything before we head out?
Cool. Thanks for having me on the channel, Anthony. Once again, good collaborating with you. We've collaborated on my channel before, but it's nice to be working with you on the Needle Drop. And hopefully I'll see you guys over on my channel too.
Cool. Cool. Anthony Fantano, Mac DeMarco, ARTV Reviews. Another one forever.